Okay, today is December 22nd, just a few days before Christmas, and we have a very, very special guest joining us today. Emily Hunsaker is so near and dear to my heart, and I'm so happy that she's here to share some value with you today about the back office and your strategy with your structure and how an assistant can support you as you're trying to meet your goals with the back office and placements and all of those fun things. But a little bit about Emily. Emily used to work at doTerra as an account manager for 7 years. And so she brings this incredible knowledge, obviously from inside corporate world. And then now she's actually a virtual assistant for a presidential diamond. So she kind of marries the two and really supports people like you who are wanting to figure out how to do this together and marry the two concepts together. So Emily, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about some of the things that you did at corporate. I know that you were part of like exceptions committees and you did a lot while you were there those 7 years.
Yeah, I did. And I loved every bit of it. Like it's so fun to be able to work with so many different organizations and see how people build their organizations so differently based off of their strengths. I think that was the coolest part for me is there's not one way to do it. However, they do run into very similar issues. And that's kind of where we came in at corporate. We helped with placement strategy. We helped with, I was in account management for several years, managing the Canada market. So it was very, very fun. And it was very rewarding to work with so many diamonds and above and just see how they run their business. But I worked in the exceptions committee for a while. So I got to see everything that gets approved and denied and exactly why and how to get your wording right and all of that fun stuff. And then I also worked with the diamonds and above in Canada. And that was awesome. And basically it was a lot of coaching calls and goal calls and how to use those placements policies to their advantage when they're building and working and restructuring their business, finding the holes, figuring out exactly how strategically can I advance, right? Because you can do the fun daily mentor calls and the mentoring and all of that awesome stuff. But then when it comes to actual structure and strategy, what do I tactically do? So yeah, that's a little bit about what I did there, but very,
Awesome.
very love doTerra with my whole heart.
And I love that. And for everybody here, I know that their big stressor is they want to better utilize their assistant as they achieve some of these goals, right? What can they ask them to do? What can they have, what help can they provide them in the back office and with placements and those kinds of things? Because many of them may know their strategy, some may not, because I know that we have some varying ranks, but most people I think here are go through presidential diamond, most of them within that like diamond and above range.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the big thing that I know people want to know is how do we marry this together and what's realistic to have the assistants do on the to support them and what do they need to do to be ready for that. So I'm really grateful that you bring kind of this experience together and we can talk a little bit more about what they can do. So where do you want to start, Emily? I know I have so many questions for you, but where do you want to start today?
You know what? I think we can start there, Megan, with that question that you just asked. Like, how do I get my assistant involved in strategy, in structure? I want them to figure out where are the holes in my organization and where can they jump in and help? I think that's a good question to start with. And I have a little visual here that I can share if everyone wants to see just a little presentation.
Yeah. One thing I'll mention too before Emily dives into this is you need to remember that your assistant is not a business coach, that they are not going to be telling you how you should run your business. You still need to come in with some level of strategy and what you want them to do. You need to have a very clear picture of what to have them do before bringing them in. So that's my big caveat as we enter into this conversation, that just because your assistant listened to this call doesn't mean that they are suddenly going to walk in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do for your business. Are you ready? You need to come in and say, this is where we're going. And this is how what I want you to do and how often and when. And so that's what we're going to do with you today and helping you to nail that down so that your assistant can actually support you effectively. Does that feel good?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Emily.
I could just echo that all day long. I think it's so important for you and your assistant to be on the same page. You have to remember as a client, I think sometimes, especially as diamonds and above who've been in this game for so long, they forget that your assistant just came onto the doTerra world maybe, or they've been with you for a little bit, but it's still, they're not building a business. They don't really know the ins and outs as well as you do. And so I think it's really important to meet them there, and just remember to hold their hand every step of the way, and they will get there, right? They will figure it out. So I think the first thing, and I just had this as a first slide because it's so important for you and your assistant to meet in the middle and know who are the key players in your game. Who in your organization are your main builders? Who are you working with? Who are your new builders who are coming on that you really want to focus on? And keep your assistant in the loop with that. Make sure they understand and know names and know your goals. That's the second tip here is you and your assistant must know your goals together. They and your assistant probably wants to know your goals, right? You probably want them to know your goals. So make sure that you're meeting in the middle there. Number 3, what do organic numbers look like? So if you aren't familiar with the term organic, if you're an assistant, that's like, what does that mean? What do the numbers look like in your organization when you're not, what you're solidly hitting, right? So not what your goals are, what you're striving for. Maybe you hit diamond 2 months out of the year. Your organic numbers would be platinum. You'd be a platinum rank, right? Typically you're hitting platinum month to month. So what does that look like? And then number 4, where are your focus legs? Where are you focusing in your organization to boost volume? Where are you building? Where are you enrolling? So keep that communication really constant with your assistant so that they know and understand what you're trying to do. And then number 5, what are your options when it comes to placements and the back office and reporting and numbers and all that heavy stuff? Your assistant should be really familiar with options, right? So exploring the back office and figuring out, okay, what are things that we can do here? And you want to guide them through that process.
And I'd like to reiterate kind of the things that Emily just said too, that when you first come in, sometimes I'll have clients that say, okay, assistant, I want you to track my rank. And then the assistant will naturally have questions. They'll say, okay, so who, what people am I watching for? Like what, when I'm tracking your rank, like I need to know what your goals are. What are you naturally, where are you trying to hit? And then who are we watching? But then the client will feel, I've seen this happen where the client is like, well, I thought that they knew what they were doing. Why are they asking me all these questions? And it's because if they have to know, you really have to walk them through. Just because they've gone through my training doesn't mean that I've taught them your structure specifically. So you have to have a very good onboarding discussion about maybe even pulling up your back office and saying, here's what it looks like. Here's the 3 solid legs and the one little mini leg that I'm really trying to grow and is not working really well. These ones are solid silver and this one, or these ones are solid gold and this one's silver naturally. We're trying to get it up to gold. And what does that look like? Who are the people that are running on their own but need support? What are their names and their ID numbers? Because if your assistant is going to be running regular reports, you've noticed that in the back office, their names are different. Sometimes it shows their business name and they're like, I thought you wanted me to find Heidi, but it says something LLC here. I think that's Heidi, but I'm not sure. So you need to give all of this information so it's very clear who your assistant knows who is who in your back office. Does that make sense? Like I can only train so much until you need to step in and train them on your specific structure. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there really quickly.
I'm so glad you did. Because I agree with that. And along with that too, assistants ask questions, just ask, because if you're kind of lost, if you maybe think, oh, this could be this, or this could be this business name, this could be this person, I don't know, just keep that communication constant, right? You don't want to miss any steps and you just want this to be as effortless as possible.
Yeah, awesome.
I agree with that.
So what are some of the things then, and maybe this is where you're kind of headed next, but what can an assistant do for the client to help them reach their goals? Like what is even possible? I feel like that's like a big question that a lot of my clients have is, so this is all well and great, but what can I actually ask my assistant to do?
Yeah, I love that. So, So I think that the first step is to set your assistant up for success, and assistants can do that. And I have just a couple common questions in here, guys, that I think are so helpful. But as far as helping getting your assistant in a place where they can reach their goals. So there's things that assistants can do, there's things that clients can do, right? And you want to make sure that you're touching base on all of these together. But here are just some tips that assistants can do for clients to help them get to their goals as far as strategy and placements. The first thing is back office work. So if your assistant gets really familiar with the back office, you can give those responsibilities to them and help them, again, hold their hand along the way. But as assistants get familiar with the back office, they can jump in and they can do, power of three and rank tracking. They can do a lot of what I did, for example, and this doesn't even necessarily have to do as much with strategy, but gather numbers and gather addresses and if they can get familiar with the back office, they can do so much. So help them get familiar with the back office. They can also correspond with the team. So if you have builders that you're working with to on goal setting, or you want them to be really familiar with how their numbers are looking for the month, OV, you're 300 OV away, for example, from hitting rank this month. Your assistant can be there if he or she feels comfortable and reach out to those builders, those team members, and help them be that middle person corresponding between you and the builder.
And on that note, like, let's say that that's something you wanted your assistant to do. Like, oh my gosh, that would be a dream to have my assistant reach out to my main builders and see what they're, and let them know that they're 300 OV away from hitting the next rank that month. That's not all that you say as the client. You don't just say, I would like you to go in and do this every month. You say, you need to really sit down with them and understand that the first couple of months, they're going to be learning how you do it and what you want that email to say, how often you want them to reach out to that builder, and what you want that email to say. And so it's not just as easy as saying, I want you to go do this every month, assistant. You need to then say what you want the email to say, how often you want them to reach out to this person. Maybe it's on the 20th of every month or the last day of every month. I don't even know. You get to decide, but generally towards the end of the month, of course. And you need to really come up with that strategy and nail it out together and then effectively delegate it. Does that make sense?
Totally. I agree with that so much. And along with that too, as the client, maybe wording, hey, I need you to reach out to this person to make sure their power of three is good. Maybe make sure first that your assistant is like, okay, how do I look at power of three, right? So like even as simple as going into the back office, oops, sorry, let me get out of here and show you.
And again, like in my training, we do talk about power three, and we do talk about ranks and structure and basic things. But as you know, think about when you were first introduced to all of this, it took a lot of exposures probably for you to finally understand the compensation plan and understand things. And so if you aren't, if you're expecting them just to get it right away, just because they've completed my training, they learn by doing. That's how just we are as people. And so they will learn more the more you immerse them into your structure and these conversations. And so I can only take them so far, and then you need to take them the rest. So I'm trying to offload as much as I can, but then you need to take them the rest of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Hold their hand, take them to Megan's trainings and make sure that they are getting refreshers, because if you tell your assistant, hey, you need to reach out to Sarah because she's 30 PV short on power of three, she can hit this month, they might be like, okay, how do I do this again? Whatever. And they have these resources they can look to. But if you're holding their hand and saying, here's my back office, here's logging into, here's what power of three looks like, here's where they're missing. If they can have that visual and do it, like Megan said, themselves, then that's going to make their chances of being able to do that easier and easier as the months go. So walk them through, your power of three structure, how to check for power of three. And again, you can refer to Megan's trainings for that. You can look on YouTube. It's really easy to jump into the back office and just study. And that's another tip I would have for an assistant is just jump in and study. If your client is cool with that, just look around here. It's pretty simple, but we can dive into that too. But basically, you just want to make sure they're really familiar with things before you're just asking them to correspond with the team so that there's no, things slipping through the cracks or whatever.
And it's interesting because even with all of my training, every client of mine does it differently. Some still use the like paper tracking, some use the back office tracker, some have come up with their own tracker. And so I can kind of get you so far to understand like the principles and the concepts and like the general thing that you might be asked to do. But then at the end of the day, especially with the back office, it comes down to the client to be very articulate in telling your assistant what you want them to do and how and when. So for example, I have one client that does everything on their own spreadsheet. And even me, like I told the client or told the assistant, I said, if it were me looking at this with all the experience and understanding I have at the back office, these are the questions I would still have about the spreadsheet, even though I fully understand all of this on a higher scale. Like I would still have questions looking at this because certain things don't make sense. And so because I don't understand how they have organized it for themselves. And so you still have to be open to your assistant needing to ask questions and understand. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, I'm so glad because I'm like, preach it. I'm like, preach it, Megan. Like she's so on point with that. And I so agree with that. So whatever method you do use, just make sure that your assistant is very aware of how you're doing it and how they can get an understanding of that.
And one thought too that keeps coming to mind, some of you have heard me say this before too, but with everything there's a statistic that if you are going to hire someone, you should spend 5 times longer training someone to do that task than it takes you to do. So what I often hear with the back office is, oh, well, it's just a 5-minute, report or thing that I do every day. So I'm just going to keep doing it rather than delegate it because it's only 5 minutes a day. That 5 minutes a day would only take you 25 minutes to teach your assistant how to do that 5-minute task every day. And if you would just invest that 25 minutes up front, you would save 28 hours in the year. And so if you can remove this mindset that, oh, it's just a 5-minute task and I'm just going to hang on to it, because too many people are like, oh, that 25 minutes seems so long. I can't sit down for 25 minutes just to explain this 5-minute task. If you do it, you will save yourself time and your assistant can jump in and more effectively to support you in bigger ways. So just kind of open up your mindset a little bit to some of the things, because I have so many of my clients keep saying, well, I'm just going to keep doing the back office, or I'm just going to keep running my own reports. But if you slowly bring in your assistant, and I'm not saying all of a sudden just drop everything on, I'm like slowly weave them in, they'll be able to take off more and more from you. Okay, sorry, now I'm really done. Go ahead.
Agreed. And tips for that too, like record yourself doing a Zoom call or a Loom or something like that. Record yourself doing it, send it to your assistant so that they can refer to it. When you go to do it yourself, say, hey, I'm jumping in to run this report. Can you jump on right now? And have your assistant jump on and watch you do it. Right. So there's so many different ways that they can learn. And that really will set them up for success.
Yeah. So what are some of the, beyond setting them up for success then, what are some of those things that, so what are the first steps? Let's go there. That's a great next step.
We can jump anywhere. I realize I'm still screen sharing. Sorry, guys. But first steps, that's a great. So I think number one, and we've talked a bit about this, but create a successful environment for your assistant, right? Hold their hand, set them up, make sure they're jumping in with you. Make sure they're aware. Number two, be really clear about your goals, right? And I think it would be a really cool idea if you sat down in the new year with your assistant and said, hey, I'm goal setting right now. Like, I want you to jump in with me and see what my goals are for the new year. And dial it down for them, right? So by this date, by June 5th, right? By June 5th, I want to be solid diamond. I want to be solid blue, right? So make sure that they know, like, okay, we have a deadline here for this goal. So be really clear about what your goals are, even month to month. If it's a BOGO month and you're like, I think we can hit diamond this month. Be clear about that with your assistant. Like, hey, it's BOGOs. We just heard it's BOGOs. So we're going diamond. Like, make sure they're aware, and then get additional help if needed. Outsource and reach out to use YouTube. There are so many leaders that have jumped onto YouTube and done back office trainings and stuff like that. So reach out to people who can help you there.
And I'll say with that too, like, think about what instead of just saying these are my goals, then say, and with these goals, here's how I see you playing in this. How would you, this is what I would love for you to do. Every month, I would love for you to run a report in my back office for X, Y, and Z by this and this and date. You know what I mean? So maybe, Emily, can we just pause there for just a second? And what are some of the actual nitty gritty things that, like, on a month to month basis, that an assistant can do to support someone in the back office?
Love that. And I'm so glad that you asked. So first, I would say is back office tracking. I think that's number one. What they can do is just kind of jump in with you or for you and see where you're at number wise every month. And something that is just so fun that I love, and I just created this, so it might look a little crazy, but is whiteboarding. Whiteboarding is something that you can do with your assistant, and then they can do on their own to keep track of where you're at every month, or keep you, kind of even accountable for your goals, and just know exactly, dialing into exactly where you're working. So there's so many different ways you can whiteboard. You can physically go buy a whiteboard and expo markers, and you can just dial out your organization. And basically what whiteboarding is looking at your organization and seeing exactly where you're ready to fill holes and to build, right? So what are the places that you need in your organization that will help you rank advance, or help you solidify your rank, or power of three?
Basically, you're looking for all your qualifiers. So like you would put you and then your frontline qualifiers. You don't need to put all like the extra people on your front line, just the main people that you're working with. And then who are the main people they're working with, and the main people they're working with. So that you kind of dial it down. And then if there's a question mark, you can have an empty spot that's like, this is the spot we're trying to fill right here. This is the big kahuna. This is the person we want to fill. Just so it's very clear what you're trying to achieve.
And I even found this website here, Envision app. So you can go on to, even online, if you don't want to like do the physical whiteboarding, and you can just very quickly draw out your org, right? You can color code it. Like, how fun is this? And you can make like, okay, we don't know who, say you're diamond. Let's just jump back a little bit. We'll give an example. Say you are going for diamond, solid platinum, and your fourth leg just either dropped out, or they're not doing the business as quickly as whatever. You are telling your assistant, we're really working on this leg here, right? Like, and this helps with whiteboarding. And like Megan said, you don't need to include all your customers here, but this is something that you can do to visually show them your organization. The graphic tree in the back office is awesome, but it has so much fluff, right? And maybe too much to where you're like, I just want to know their OV right now. I just want to see my main qualifiers and builders who I'm working with. So this is something kind of fun you can do. And then I also love like just using an org chart in Excel or in Google Sheets. And this is really cool and something your assistant can do, because if you look here, you can add an extra column for volume. So if you don't know how to do this, I can either drop a link in the chat to a quick YouTube tutorial or something. And it's funny, I'm not a crazy fan of like Excel. Like, I am not an Excel expert. Love Excel when I can use it, but sometimes I don't. But this is so simple to do. You basically create 3 columns. These are names of the upline. And then, or I'm sorry, these are names of the people in your organization. So for example, people building, and then their sponsors. So, and then in the volume. So you create this first, and then you can create an org chart of it. And if you see, I can scroll over and see the volume here, as long as it's placed here. So something your assistant can do is they can help jump into your back office and just create a real quick, like, check on OV in the middle of the month. And see where they're at, where your main builders are at, your focus legs. They can put in that volume here. And then you and your assistant can see like, okay, like, let's take a look here at Jordan. We need him to be silver. He has 3,000 in that leg, 3,000 in that leg, 3,000 in that leg. He's good this month for silver. Okay. That's just a quick way you can look at it. And really all you're telling your assistant to do is, hey, go into the back office, make sure they know how to do this first, and pull the volume for the month. They can even, your assistant can even have that on their calendar for the 15th of every month. I'm going to go in and update volume, or once a week on Tuesdays, is volume and numbers day. I'm jumping in and I'm going to update that volume to see exactly where we're at for that month. So that's really dialing in, like really, really dialing in.
Some people will even go so far as, bringing in Power 3 to this, where they want to see what each of these people are individually ordering, not just their OV. And so you can add another column for that as well and bring in their PV or even the date that their order is scheduled for. Because as we know, like all the way until the last of the month, people can still be placing orders, but maybe most of them have placed them by the 20th. And so you can have another column that says date placed. And then all the red ones, you can make them be like the ones that are scheduled but haven't yet processed. So you and your assistant can decide together all the ones that haven't yet processed. Can you be going in, once a week or every few days to see if they process, and then update the spreadsheet so it's in real time. We can see how far they've come. And we know that there's a back office Power 3 tracker, which is an awesome tool. But sometimes you just want to see the rank and the Power 3 all in one. And so my husband and I, it's really funny that you're sharing this, because we're creating something very similar to this to share with you all. So maybe we can combine forces. And if you were open to sharing this template, we can kind of combine forces. But that's something that we're going to be creating as well, that I showed you guys a few weeks ago, to make it a little bit easier for you so you can just jump in. Can I show Lucid Chart as well? It's another free option.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are also not wanting, we're wanting something similar. So Lucid Chart is free. This is just as another whiteboard option where you can drop in, and you can drop in all these different things, and you can connect them just like a chart would. And you're gonna bring them in, and you can connect, you can say this is connected to this. This is obviously really rudimentary, but then you can bring in all these all your different columns. You can say this is Karen, and then you can even whatever, like there's different options. So if the Excel one is too overwhelming for you, then you can do this. If you want an actual whiteboard, do that. But somehow you need a way where you can actually work on it together as a partnership, and your assistant can see in real time how you're wanting them to play.
Love that so much. And so I'm so glad that I didn't know you had previously shared about your husband, that tool that you and your husband are creating. Gold, guys. Yes. Oh my God. How badly do we need this? Like, holy cow. Like Megan said, the back office is great, but sometimes you just want to dial in, and your assistants want you to just like give them the basics, right? So my goodness, that will be incredible. And along with that, kind of what your assistant can do is you're really going to need them to understand how to pull information from the back office. So let me quickly, again, this is just second nature to some of you, I am sure.
It's surprising. So a lot of my clients who are diamonds and above, you'd be way surprised with how many of them don't know the reports they can run in the back office. And so maybe just as an example, Emily, do you want to share some examples of reports that can be run in the back office? Because I was actually stunned how many diamonds and above didn't know all these different things that they could do in the back office.
Yes, totally. And my number one piece of advice here, if you're a diamond, if you're a client, if you're an assistant, whoever, would be to just jump in and explore and practice. But yes, these are some quick reports that can help big time when it comes to running promos on your team, when it comes to reaching out and maybe doing like a reactivation campaign or something like that to boost volume on your team, to solidify your retention rate. Retention rate is something that is really important for you and your assistant to know and to focus on, because that's where you're really going to organically rank advance and grow your business. So if you don't know how to get to your retention rate, I can just show you really quickly. Sorry, let me move us. I love like our faces here. Okay. So it's in the summary genealogy. So you go over to Wellness Advocate Services. They kind of moved things around a little while ago. And then genealogy, and then you scroll down to summary genealogy. Now, this is a very new team and organization, so it's going to look a lot different than yours. But at corporate, what we loved to see was a 50% retention rate. If at least half of your team is ordering, that's amazing. We know that doTerra has a 60 to 70% retention rate as a company. Some presidential diamonds who are just powerhouses. They all are, let's be real, but they have really high retention rates. And you can see your retention rate right here. Okay, so this is the last 3-month average of how many people are ordering month to month in your business. And again, you want to aim for 50%. So that just little stat right there is something that maybe your assistant should know, and you'd want to guide them through this. So as far as reports go, your summary genealogy is really a really fun quick look at kind of what numbers are looking like in your organization. So you can see right here, again, this is your retention rate, your total number of members on your team, and then how many are active. So how many are ordering month to month. And then this is, again, a snippet of the last 3 months here. Down here, you have a table for the number of people on your team who are different ranks on your team, and who are qualifying this month.
Qualifying means they're 100 PV. They're qualifying for, and they're ordering that rank, or they're qualifying for that rank. Which qualification is that?
Correct. So if we look, for example, consultant, you're seeing, and usually you can click and they'll give you the names. Yeah, I might have a pop-up blocked or something like that right now. I'll have to check on. Oh, there we go. So these are the names of those. So if you click on that number in that rank row, you can see who's qualifying for that rank this month, which is really cool. I mean, it's a really cool, quick thing you can do. There's so many different ways you can see that in the back office. You can look on the graphic tree, you can look in detailed genealogy, but this is just a quick snippet. Okay. And then these are your levels of your organization. So down to 9 levels, and how many members are on each level. And then down here, just member type and members. Some of this you can see in your team tab too. So I'll just quickly show you the team tab. So this is what your organization looks like, and some of the reports run here. So this is a view by rank chart. So that gives you a visual of kind of what we just saw. Another visual of the member types in your organization. How many are wellness advocates? How many are wholesale customers? Typically in your organization, you're going to see a whole lot more of wholesale customers than wellness advocates here, right? That's just how it goes. And that's a good strategy, is to have a lot of wholesale customers, because you really want your builders to be the wellness advocates. And then level by level organization. Again, here, this is cool too. How many people are in different regions around the world?
And so kind of breaking this down for just a minute, for all of you that I can see are kind of like getting glazed over. We have this month-to-month tracker that you can use as well and give to your assistant. And you can say, once a month, I want you to go in, and I'll show you what this looks like really quick. I want you to go in, assistant, and track all this data on this tracker sheet. And we'll make sure that you have access to this. But all that stuff Emily just showed you, I created a template for it months ago so that you could put all of your data in here and track actually month to month. Because as a business owner, it's important to know your history and what, and maybe we should even add a retention spot in there as well. So you can see what your retention is month to month, and see how that's ebbing and flowing. So you can make targeted campaigns and retention things for your team to actually nurture and grow them. But this is how you would actually apply all that data, or one of the ways you can apply that data is actually having your assistant go in once a month and drop that in these columns, like how many people do you have in Europe versus Asia, how many people do you have on each level, what are your earnings month to month. All of the different things you can have them track for you. And you can just say, once a month, I don't even care the date. I just want you to go in and track and put this into a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you the template after this. And then additionally, like, what are some, as far as like, let's say that they have a team that's struggling. What are some other, like, I guess, reports they can run? Like, I'm thinking all the people that are not on LRP, or all the people that are, do you want to kind of cover that for a hot second?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me share again. So if we go back to dashboard here, these quick reports, guys, are awesome. And again, I would just encourage you to jump in and look, but not on LRP, for example. These are the titles of these reports. And these will show you, and I wish I had more data in here for you to kind of see, but just to look over right here, these quick reports, you can take a very quick look at the people who are ordering LRP every month, who are not on LRP every month. Check this out, 100 PV LRP, but no product of the month. So these are people who, like, if they order 25 more PV a month, they get their free product, right? So that might be something that you want to jump into marketing and create a promotion for, or create a reminder. You might want to do a Facebook Live or something like that. Like, you can use these reports, and your assistant can help pull these reports so that you can jump out there to the team and say, hey, reminder, check this out, or reminder, we're doing campaign this month for people who are jumping. If you're new to LRP, right? Or maybe an LRP training, like, there's just so many things you can do looking at these reports here.
And so if there are like emails that you want to reach out to these people, like, as you know, in my program, we have these 5 different email templates that you can use to reach out to people and say, hey, we noticed that you're so close to hitting the product of the month. And maybe you didn't even know what this is. Let me tell you a little bit about it, why it's so awesome. And then so your assistant can run that report. You can customize the template that I have so it's unique to you, and then you can send it out. I wouldn't send that same email to the same person every single month because that would get overwhelming. So you need to come up with some sort of a tracking system to see how often you have sent that email to that same person, so they're not overwhelming them and blasting them, right? But coming up with your own strategies is what we're trying to help you see, that your assistant can run these reports, and then you as the client need to decide what to do with that data. Are you going to run your own BOGO? Are you going to, just for one leg that is so close to getting gold, but they're not quite there? Everybody else is gold, but that one leg just isn't. Are you going to run a targeted campaign that if they enroll so many people between now and the end of the month, then you'll give them a diffuser? Like, what are you going to do with that data so your assistant can run the reports and then you run with it, you make it happen? And they can obviously help you send the emails and do those things, but you need to decide what to do with it once the data is created.
Totally love that thought. And I don't know if we have any questions around that, but I was just going to jump in quickly and show you guys another thing that your assistant can do. Let me hide us there. Which is so simple. A lot of you being higher ranks probably have a whole bunch of exceptions requests coming in, right? And something that they can do here is manage the placements portal. So if you jump in as an assistant and click on request tracking, and a lot of you may have your assistants already just doing this because it's so simple, but if you don't, I would suggest having this be something that is just taken off your plate. But jumping into request tracking, and then here are requests that you've submitted to, and I'm sorry, backtrack. This is for the exceptions committee. Okay, let me just, sorry. When you are in a placements jam and you have a move you want to make that's outside of placements policy, you can do so through the exceptions process. That's all on your back office. And the exceptions committee is a team at doTerra that reviews these requests and either approves or denies the request. So say, for example, you have someone on your team who is sisters with someone else, and for some reason, maybe there was a mistake or you just forgot to move them or something, and you really want this person to be over here with your sister. That is an example where you would use the exceptions committee process. You can jump in and submit that request here. This is all about the exceptions committee, what gets approved, what is commonly denied, how to apply. And really, it's quite simple. You just click submit an exception application. And this is where you would put in that information. Your assistant can help here too. Have them read and review a lot of this information, go over it with them and make sure they really understand what's going on. It's really clear to them, but they can submit an exception here. When they submit the exception, it goes to the committee. And when you click on request tracking, you can see the exceptions you've submitted here. Okay, so again, this is any placements change that's outside of placements policy that you submit. And you'll notice as leaders that you probably have quite a few requests that require your approval. So when you submit a request, you have to get approval of the 7 levels above you. So you have this sister that you want to move over here, 7 levels in your upline need to approve that request in order for it to be done. Typically, that's not a problem if it's not going to negatively affect them. So those requests will show up here. And what your assistant can do is they can jump into requests requiring your approval. And there's an approval I wish I had an example here, but basically it would show, the request would show up here. Who's the member being moved? Who are you moving them to? What's the reasoning? And then your signature status, and your assistant can go in and approve the requests for you. They can just click the button here and click approve. And that way your approval is submitted. Okay. So you might have people down in your organization who are submitting these requests that need your approval for.
So as a really quick summary for those that are still a little bit confused, there are requests that you may have personally submitted that are pending approval from your 7 upline. Then here is where you will likely see all the people underneath you that are requesting your approval, and then all the people above you. And then so this is where your assistant can come in handy, and they can kind of approve these. But as you know, that they will automatically be denied for a certain number of reasons. If you say, well, this would really help my power of 3, or this would really help this person's rank, this would really help this person's structure, on any of that verbiage will automatically get denied. And so do not do that in your exceptions requests. And likewise, if you see somebody else who has a request coming through that states something like that, you are obligated to deny it, because you know that it's not going to get anywhere. Like, it will go all the way to the exceptions committee and get denied if it has that verbiage in there. So a better thing would be, this person that is the sisters with this person is not being supported over here anymore because the person decided to stop building. We feel like they would be better supported over here where there's a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of team trainings, whatever. That will be more likely to get approved, because it's not about structure and rank and volume or anything. It's all about serving the person on the team and why will they benefit from moving to a different spot. And so you need to make sure that if you are using your assistant in this process, that you do it with them. It's kind of like teaching a man to fish. Like, you don't just say, okay, go do this for me. Do it with them the first couple of times, and then watch them do it the next time, and then let them do it on their own the next time, so that they can really kind of do it with you, and then they kind of understand what it is they do. Because again, I can only do so much training on this because your process is so different, and the way that you approve or deny and all these different things is still a little bit different from team to team. So you need to make sure you walk this through with your assistant if you want them to participate in this process.
Totally. And thank you, Megan, for making that so clear. I think, and here's exactly where you can see that, like, what gets approved and what doesn't. And verbiage is so important with that. And on the other side of that coin, with this example that we're going with, if this sister has 1,200 in volume and you're trying to move them to the other sister, the committee is like, oh yes, they're sisters. However, that's probably going to build rank or power of 3, or it's over this 900 OV amount that is allowed to move. Likely that will be denied, because it's just so much volume. So even if the verbiage is there, you still really want to look at numbers and see what the effect is going to be in your organization and if it will get approved or denied. Because like Megan said, you don't want it to go all the way to the committee, get all those signatures, and then it's denied, right? So check this out, and you can even go over this with your assistant. It's always a good refresher. So that's
Debbie had a really good question. She says, how can we see if it's set to go to committee or has gone to committee once we have all the signatures for the exceptions? Like, how do they know?
Good question. So if you click here at request tracking and stay on this tab that says requests I have submitted, you'll see under the request status where it's at. And I'm trying to remember the exact the stage that it's in. They will have different updates here. If it says pending, you can usually click on that and see who hasn't signed yet. If you click on that and everyone, because a pop-up will come up with the 7 upline required signers. And if you look at that and everyone has signed, then it's on the way to the committee. Now, something that a lot of people might not know is the committee meets on the 15th of the month and on the last day of the month. So anything you submit between the 1st and the 15th will go to the meeting the last day of the month. And anything between the 16th and last day of the month will go to the meeting before the 15th on the second month and the following month. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's how you can see here. If all of the signatures are there and it's the 14th of the month, then that request is ready to go to the 30th. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Emily, Wayne, he said he's willing to show us his back office really quick. He has one that pulled up that he can show us in
Great.
real time. That would be
Thank
awesome.
you. Oh, that'd be so great. Yeah, let me stop share real quick.
Thank you, Wayne, just so everybody can get a sense. And I think you have sharing abilities, Wayne. I don't know if you can still hear us. You're on mute, Wayne. If you're talking, we can't hear you or see you. I'll let you pull that up while we kind of move on if you're still thinking on that. But that would be awesome, Wayne, if you want to show that. But basically, you can kind of get the moral of the story. Oh, Wayne, there you are.
Yeah, I'm only working on one screen right now, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, you're okay. You pulled up. Well, I mentioned this really quick, but the main thing we're trying to get at is the back office it's a lot of information. This is your business in your hands. And so if you want your assistant to help you here, it's so crucial that you lead them along. And I know that you're like, well, I just want them to know everything. And it really does take time. And the more you nurture it, and the more that they can take off of your shoulders. So here's a really good example of what it looks like in Wayne's back office. You can see under review means that it's actually the committee is actually reviewing it, and pending means there are people that still need to sign it. Is that right?
No, so this one is under review, but if you click on pending, it shows you that the 4 people who had to approve it approved it.
Awesome.
And these are both related to the same move. 2 got created because of, I don't know, whatever reason. So that one only required 4 on the enroller piece, but on the sponsor piece, it required 7. So it shows you that 6 of the 7 are done. And this is the only person that has to approve it at this point.
That's a perfect example right there, because you can see Dana right here pending, she still needs to sign, right? So you can see that first top exception is under review, everyone has signed, but that second one, we're still waiting on Dana. So this might even be an example of where your assistant can reach out to Dana and say, hey, we have an exception for you to check out and approve. If you feel you can approve it, let us know if you have questions, we can walk you through, So that's a great example there. And just to mention that first exception that he pulled up that only required the 4 signatures, you can see under the type of request column, it says enroller with downline. So just to clarify, if it's an enroller change, it only needs the 3 enrollers in your upline, the 3 enroller members there to sign. If it's a sponsor change, it needs the 7 signatures.
And then the weird thing is this enroller is not changing on it. So I don't know why it created an enroller one, but I was the enroller and I'm staying the enroller. So
yeah. Okay. It may be enroller with, it may be if it's someone coming from, sometimes if it's an account transfer or if it's the different nature of.
Yeah, it is something along those lines. So
okay.
I'm not going into detail about it. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah. That's perfect. So yeah, if it's something a little different, not just your basic enroller sponsor change, it might walk you through a couple different ways that you need to sign and whatnot, but that's always something you can reach out to the placements chat for if you have questions.
That's what I did first, because I wanted to know exactly how to word it and what to say, because it is a weird change.
Okay.
And they were very helpful with, say this, don't say, they didn't specifically say that, but they led me in what to say in it, so it wouldn't mess up the change.
And one thing to note too, I mean, we won't spend too much long on placements because you all have gone through many placements trainings, I'm sure, but we're in the sense of how your assistant can help you. Just remember that with all the assistant or the placements requests that you're getting or that you're sending out, that timeline is really important, because everybody acts like it's life and death. Like this needs to happen today. But even if it got signed today, there's still going to be several weeks before they can even review it, depending on the time that you have that it's in review, the 15th or the 1st. And so don't light the fire under everybody, because it'll still take some time before they even get to the review committee. Still encourage them and say, hey, can you look at it by this date and either approve or deny it by this date? But it's not quite as urgent as everybody makes it to be sometimes, unless the committee is meeting right away. Okay, so we've talked about a lot. That's kind of just that's kind of a higher level overview of what your assistant can do for you in the back office. But Emily, I'd love for the last like few minutes for you to kind of share what you've been doing with other doTERRA leaders and how you specifically have been taking them one-on-one and coaching them with the process, either with them and their assistant or helping them identify holes. Because we have a variety of ranks here, right? But I know that you work especially with these diamonds and above who need that higher level. They know their back office, they know what's missing, but they just sort of need something more. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing for them?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Wayne, thanks for sharing that too. Placements is such a beast. Structure is such a beast. All of this strategy stuff can be difficult and almost overwhelming for people to understand and know next steps and what to do. So I can come in so many different ways, which is fun for me. But mainly what leaders reach out to me for is coaching calls. And really all that consists of is looking at your organization and doing a deep dive and figuring out how to get you into a, either doing a whiteboard session or whatever, but just making sure that we know exactly where to focus in your organization and options. Like, what can we do there? Where can we do the placement exceptions, or where can we do a campaign, or what can we do specifically? And so I just call that a spotlight session, but basically we just figure out the missing pieces in your organization and find where we can focus and where we can fill those holes. That's a lot of what I would do. And along with that, as far as coaching goes, I would love to jump in. And if you don't have that, like Megan said, it takes you maybe 25 minutes, right, to train them on one thing in your back office. But if there's specific things in your back office and specific goals that you want to reach, I am happy to work with your assistant and train them. And I have a package actually that is just like a coaching call. We jump in and we do a deep dive into your back office as a client, and I can show them where they can play, the reports they can run, specifically what they can do in your organization that will help you get to your goals. And that also includes, because placements is amazing. And like Wayne said, they can't give you the exact wording, right, on how the exceptions committee or specific things like that. And it's because they're placements, right? But I can help with that. So I can help your assistant learn what they can do, what they can say in that regard. I also have an inbox that they can reach out to at any time. And hey, we have a quick placements question, or hey, we have, hey, how do I run this report in the back office or whatever? So I can be their go-to with that, because it's a beast and they need that additional help. So that's a little bit of what I've done. And then on top of that too, I've helped with restructuring before. And that's a big thing. But basically, if you're someone who's been in doTERRA for a really long time and your front line is so wide and you're like, I just need to clean it up. Do you ever say that? You're like, I need to clean up my org. Okay. So that is a beast too. So I can jump in and help with that. I can look at possible placements moves, where your focus legs are, and see what would be approved and not approved. And just kind of do that messy behind the scenes work. And I can also, if you want your assistant to do that, help them do that. So hopefully that's a big mouthful of what I can help with. But yeah, I would love to help you.
And here in the chat, we'll send this all in the email and everything, but this is, if you want to get connected with Emily and you're like, oh my goodness, that would just be life-changing to even just do one of those things and start just kind of getting some things cleaned up, whether it's a restructure thing or getting you and your assistant on the same page, because you're struggling because again, I know some of my clients they're relationship builders. And then anytime that we talk back office, they just glaze over and they get super stressed out, even though you're a diamond and you've gotten this far. I have so many clients tell me, how did I get to be a diamond and I don't even know what to do with my back office? So if you want to pair up with Emily and bring your assistant along and you two can kind of go at it together and get some clarity, that would be awesome. If you just want to work with her one-on-one and do a whole restructure and get that cleaned up, then she can do that too. And link is where you can kind of fill out the form. You fill out the form, we'll forward it to Emily and she'll get in touch with you personally and you can kind of figure out what is the best step moving forward. Even if you yourself don't know, you can kind of describe in the form what it is you're looking for and what your stressors are. And then Emily can meet with you and kind of get something set up. Debbie says, Emily, it's been my experience that no placements move will be accepted if the sponsor is not enrolling. Can you address that?
Great question. I'm going to go back to Megan's little blurb that she gave right there, just real quick. If you yourself don't know what to do, like, let's jump on a discovery call. I do a 30-minute discovery call. You tell me your stressors and we can figure it out. So go to that form, fill out Megan's form there, and we can go from there. And then, yeah. Okay. So Debbie, great question. And yes, that is sometimes true and sometimes not. So without diving into it too much, basically the exceptions committee's goal is to make sure that if you're making a placements change, that person you're moving is going to be supported, right? And so if the committee is looking at an exception and you want to move someone under a sponsor who doesn't have enrollments, their thinking is, okay, this person isn't building. They're not going to be able to support this person. So why would we approve a change if they're not going to get that support that they need? Right. And so you might either get a response from the committee that says, okay, well, we want to see them enroll some people first, or they might deny it outright. A quick tip you can do there is before you submit the change, you can have that person enroll a couple people. Right. And then that way the committee sees, oh, they're enrolling. So that's something you can maybe do there, but quick yes or no answer to that. Typically, no, they will not approve an exception if this person isn't going to be supported. And that is in your best interest too, because you want them to be supported. You don't want all of that on your shoulders, trying to support everyone on your team. You want those sponsors to be able to support your person. So hopefully that makes sense, Debbie, and answers your question.
So kind of in summary, I know we've talked about a lot, but if you're an assistant, I'm sure that you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. If you're a client, you're thinking, oh my goodness, this would be the dream. But with that, if you're trying to figure out where to start, I recommend starting with working with Emily. I know that she has a discount that she's going to tell you about here for January. But before she jumps into that, I want to kind of really quick overview that if you want your assistant just to get started, I would definitely start with having them do at least running once a month a report with all of the new enrollments on your team and just keeping an Excel spreadsheet with all of those, because we know they drop off the back office. So that way you at least have that and you can nurture them and reach out to them over time. And that's just a regular monthly report I would have them run. The second thing I would do is have them do this month-to-month tracker where you can have your monthly stats and you have all of that, and you can count, and it's really just nice to see all of that month to month, and it's really easy to just put that in. If you want their help with rank or power 3, then you need to sit down and schedule a 1 hour just to sit down with them and walk them through exactly what your goals are, what you want them to do, and what you want, where you want them to play. If you want them to run other reports in the back office, like nurturing campaigns, all of my clients tell me they want their assistant to help them run reactivation campaigns, but then they wonder like why it's not happening. It's because you as the client need to initiate that, and you need to say, okay, assistant, I would like you to go in on the 10th and the 25th of every month, or whatever you decide, and go and see all of the people that are, figure out what, again, after you kind of identify what this looks like, with them, I want you to identify the people that are not hitting rank or not hitting volume, so that we can run a promotion specifically for that leg. And you already have some promotion ideas ready, whether it's a BOGO, a free diffuser, or whatever it is you're going to give if they boost their volume. Maybe it's an LRP club. Your assistant can help you manage all the emails with that, all of the contacting, all the things that go in line with that, sending out the things, and you can go live and do your own thing, but you still need to show up and tell them what you want to do and what you want to run. So I hope that kind of gives you at least a starting point. There's so many different reports you can run, people who are not on LRP, people who are close to getting the product a month, all those different things. But ultimately, you need to start weaving them into that process and saying, even on the 10th and the 20th of every month, can you go in and approve or deny placements requests? When I first started doing that as an assistant, what we would do is on our weekly calls, my client would pull up her screen and she'd say, here are all the ones that we have pending. Here's how I would respond to them. And then she would do it in real time. And she'd say, say, these are the ones I'd approve, and these are ones I would deny and why. And then the next month I would go in and I would share my screen. I would say, okay, so from what I understand, these are the ones that you would approve and these are the ones you would deny. Am I right? She's like, yeah, except for this, this, and this. I'm like, great, now I understand. So next month I can just do it for you. And then we just kind of shared our screens like that. So you just have to have that give and take relationship with them jumping in with you. So now, Emily, do you want to tell them about the discount that you have before we close today?
Yes, yes. So I just put it in the chat too, but if you use the code New Year, you'll get $30 off if you use services in the month of January. So I would love to connect with you all. And again, let's jump on a call and let me just hear what's going on in your org and we can go from there. But use that code in the month of January and you'll get that $30 off. But make sure you go to Megan's website, and yeah, it would be so fun to connect with you. So
awesome. And on kind of like a higher level, not quite as in depth as Emily provides, but of course, you know, with my program, if you're still within that 3 months of my program from the time that you hired your assistant within my program, then you still have that time with me as well, where I can answer higher level questions, but I'm not going to get down and dirty as deep as Emily will with you. And I can still help your assistant when they're like, hey, I've gotten this far with running the report, but I still want to know, how can I finish it? Like, I still help with all of that, but this is like a deeper, more one-on-one personal thing that Emily does that is deeper than what I will be providing. I can definitely help your assistant run reports and understand basics of the power of 3 and all of those things. That's not going away. That's still all there. But if you know that you want that more personalized support, this is something that will be really beneficial to you. Okay, I know we talked a lot. I know it's Christmas. Any other questions or thoughts before we close? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Emily. We so appreciate you and the value that you provide and the people that you serve. So thank you for joining us a few days before the holiday. I know it's a busy time.
yes, of course, you all have a very, very happy holidays and Merry Christmas and whatever it may be, but just enjoy time with your family. Thank you again, Megan, so much for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.